Welcome all. It's that time again. Mouthpiece is in. Cup check time. It's time for hard knocks and cheap shots. What do we got this week?
Well, starting off with the world of wrestling, Alberto Del Rio, so he's known now as El Patron.
Patron.
He's going to be looking at.
Love that name.
Going to be looking at signing with Bellator, what is that? The second major start now that's been looking at MMA now?
Yeah, but the difference between Alberto Del Rio and CM Punk is that Alberto Del Rio has been there and done that. He's 9-5 in MMA. He went to the Pan American Games with a wrestling background, Greco-Roman, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, he's been in the ring with Crow Cop. I mean, losing to Crow Cop, there's no shame in that. We're talking about Bushido won with pride. And I mean, this was before, UFC was the gold standard. So he's done this in a big stage. You got King Mo over there, who's been with TNA Wrestling. You got Tito Ortiz, who's been with TNA Wrestling. You got Bobby Lashley over there. And quite honestly, they're going to throw a lot of money at Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is going to be in a bidding war once his contract is up between UFC, WWE, and Bellator. So, I mean, that's Viacom money. That's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, there's a lot of irony that how, even though WWE and UFC technically aren't really in competition, I mean, looking at it, the UFC, the mixed martial arts world, they've been benefiting over the last couple of months from getting that big bump from ex-WWE stars. You had CM Punk, a guy who defected over, and then now you have Alberto Del Rio, who's another former champion, something about following coming over. Now Brock Lesnar comes over.
They've benefited in the sense of buzz. At the end of the day, if these guys don't produce, it means jack all. I mean, Brock Lesnar, again, he's a UFC champion, so it means something. Bobby Lashley's proven to be very competent at MMA. Again, also a wrestling background. With Del Rio, we mentioned before, El Patron, he has a wrestling background. There's only one guy who honestly is going to embarrass himself at the end of this all.
Well, we'll see. And on that same note here, some interesting news in the UFC front. Looks like Rampage Jackson might be heading over to UFC after claiming that apparently Bellator violated their contract with him.
He's claiming they didn't give him his pay-per-view numbers when he demanded it. They had 45 days, I believe, to give him the numbers that was required per the contract. To be honest, this is headed to court. It's going to be one of those Andre Ward things where it's just going to be in limbo now that lawyers are involved. I mean, probably CM Punk's going to debut before Rampage Jackson does, to be quite frankly.
But how big of a signing would this be if having Rampage Jackson back in the UFC?
Name-wise, it's kind of a big deal. I don't know what's left of Rampage Jackson. It adds a little luster to that light heavyweight division. I guess Chris Weidman can use another notch outside of Anderson Silva. I still believe he's going to beat Vitor Belfort. But it's a big deal in the sense of name. It's otherwise. I mean, we don't know how much Rampage has left in the tank, especially since he was a TRT guy, and we don't know if he has that stamina they used to without the juice. So we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. And that wraps up this edition of Hard Knocks and Cheap Shots. Remember to tune in next week for more and to continue the conversation. Remember to log on to lamppost.com. I'm John Paul Market. This is Emilina. We are continuing.